Last week, you guys remembered I talked about yellow Victors. Here's another one. Now this Victor only goes for $29 because it's not the original paint. So if you look at last week's one, the yellow Victor was unaffected. It was as so pre-painted Victor, post-painted Victor is red. This one is from an episode where he ended up getting covered in barnacles and starfish and stuff. So not as valuable, not as sought after, but still more sought after because red Victor only goes for 10. So you got 10, and then you've got the one that was pre-painted around the $60 mark, and then you got this guy in kind of excellent condition, $29. So this is the Audi TTS. The Audi TT is a sought after model car. It's very iconic because when it first came out, people said it looked really sleek. It looked like a poor man's Porsche. It also was a hairdresser's car. But this one, the TTS, which is the performance model, top of the range TT, I suppose, they only made it once. So this is the '09 model, and it came out in 2010 as part of the Speed Machines range for Hot Wheels. They made it in 3 different colors, and they have not made it since. So this one is loose, and this went for $50, and it's going to Portugal. So it's $50 plus shipping. The logic remains when we talk about figuring the values of items. A lot of times resellers will say it's rare. Yeah, but what makes it rare? It doesn't just go from no value to rare. There's a stacking of components, factors that lead to it being rare. So in this case, it was only made once, so that's one layer. It's a sought after car because I've mentioned before there are a lot of cars that were only made once that have no value because retail price plus made once, and if that's it, 100 years will pass and that's not gonna add more to the value. The way made once plus the sought after car plus it's the performance version of that car plus it's made with its premium construction as opposed to average cheap Hot Wheels construction, plus the color is also nice. So this was a popular color back then too. So all of those reasons give it extra value, and over time, if every value compounds by even 1%, that's where you find yourself in a position today where what was an $8 car at retail is now worth $50 loose. You can imagine if it's new, it'd be close to $100, and that's what it is. So when thinking about things that have resale value, I understand rare, but rare is only one of the factors that leads to something being valuable. We talk about it in the channel and in my community as well. Resale value is a product of scarcity, which is rarity, and desirability. Desirability has way more factors than just simply scarcity. Because if you find something that is very rare, but it's of no use to anybody. It's rare, no use to anybody, nobody wants it, it doesn't look nice, it doesn't serve any nostalgic purpose, there's no historical element to it, it's just rare, you can't resell it for much. But rare, historical significance, nostalgia, visual appeal, real life utility, functionality that is still relevant, functionality that is unique to the buyer that's paying for that functionality. All of those things give it value, and then it compounds over time. So when we say do your research, we don't just mean how many have been sold, how many are available to buy. We mean, do you know the story of the item? And that's why niching down in certain categories actually serves you. You're trying to build up this side of the equation, not this. This is something that every reseller can know. And you see that in eBay on the platform. You'll see people list items that are actually rare, and then they pick a number. They pluck a number from the sky. And when you look at it, you go, nah, surely it doesn't sell for that much. And you hear that all the time, whether it be on Facebook, Instagram, anywhere in my community, people will say, I found a comp for this. Does it really sell for that much? And then we'll dig deeper, and occasionally we'll uncover a story that justifies the insane price. But more often than not, we discover a story that makes the insane price look very poorly researched. So focus on this side of the equation, and you'll have more confidence picking a number you will actually start to not care about all these other numbers out of the sky because you will know that they're not real numbers. Occasionally, you might test towards that higher number, but for the most part, you'll understand why the number you pick is sound, is safe, and will lead to a consistent, regular sell-through. Here's another example of something that I never thought would sell, but does. Duplo animals, in which case this is a Pegasus. This went for $11 plus postage. So somebody is willing to pay $20 to get this shipped to their home so that their kid can play with it, they can complete a set. So if you see random Duplo animals in the op shop, you're more likely to find these than toy cars that are worth selling, to be honest. And in my experience, they go for like $1. And they'll be in some random tub. So if you see any like Duplo animals, just make sure that the print are still intact. So in this case, you see this eye. This eye is still very much detailed. This eye is like a minor scuff. But in terms of the hair, there's like some mild scuffing on the back of the tail where, I guess it's been dropped on the floor a couple of times. But for the most part, it presents as something that one can relate to because it's got a face that you can look at. It's got, everything looks like it's still in motion. The wings are still printed on nicely. See? So yeah, $1 to 10, an easy $1 to 10. And following on with the Hot Wheels trend as well, this is Annie and Clarabelle. If you have a kid who likes Thomas, or if you grow up with Thomas, you know Annie and Clarabelle because these are the coaches that Thomas pulls. Like so. When we talked about rare, here's how we build up the factors to work out value. You haven't been able to buy a wooden railway Annie and Clarabelle for a few years now. And so these are rare, okay? Because you cannot buy them in the shops, therefore you have to buy them second hand. When they came out, they were selling for just under $20 the pair. These sold for $25, therefore more than retail. Because rare plus sought after characters because Thomas pulls these two coaches. It's weird for Thomas to pull any other coach. They are also in good condition. You'll notice that there's only like a couple of corner chips. But if you look at the actual paintwork itself, fantastic. Also at the bottom, you can see. Faces, still good. Very good. So there's a desirability, despite the fact that it's just not just rare, desirability. They are sought after characters. They are essential to the franchise. So you get that together, even though they're not mint. In mint condition, these will go for 30 to $40 a pair. In this condition, still 25. So that's how you work out values, I suppose, in terms of rare items plus all that knowledge within the category. Yes?
I know what to do.
You don't know what to do now. You finished with Mario already? Yeah. Well, I got no suggestions for you. I still gotta pack, so don't take this the wrong way. When I talk about why an item has its value, the reason I do that is because I need to know why before I do something. And maybe you're like me, where you struggle to invest or take a leap of faith when someone just says, here's what I found, here's what it sold for, if you see it, you should pick it up. There are too many gaps. To you, there are too many gaps. For some people who just need the good to go, that works for them. That does not work for me, and I'm pretty confident I'm not like snowflake unique in that regard. So if you're like me and you need to know all the gaps before you do something, there's a good chance your brain also races all the time and you're constantly triangulating and figuring things out. There's also probably a good chance that when choosing friends, you don't just look at what people do, you also look at what people don't do to kind of work out if this is the kind of person you want to deal with going forward. So that's why when I talk about values, you won't see me talk about everything that I sell because there isn't enough time on earth to do that. But where there are items where I'm able to articulate how the value stacks towards the end dollar value, then you'll hear about it, like today. So yeah, it needs to stack, otherwise I won't purchase it, which is also why for me, when I get into a category, I can't do everything stores, because everything stores, for the most part, it's the good to go, pick one item, pick another item, fill your store with a bunch of bolos, and hope that it works. For some people, it does work, right? And for some people, they can sleep at night knowing that, hey, if sales come in, it's working, and I'll do it until it doesn't work. Some people can do that. There's no right and wrong. I cannot do that. That's not how my brain functions, and that may not be how your brain functions as well. So if you're following the breadcrumbs of an everything seller who is okay to do that, and you find it increasingly frustrating, there's a very good chance your brain is wired more towards a niche store because you need all that understanding before you make that first purchase, which is okay. It's not analysis paralysis if it leads to decision making, right? If there's a threshold that you know that is consistent for you to make decisions. So for me, right, people would call me an overthinker. People would say that, John, your brain never shuts off. But from what you've seen in the last year and a half of me being on YouTube, I don't struggle with decision making. I have very clear thresholds beyond which I'll buy, don't buy. If it's a mistake, it's okay. I understand how to pivot from the mistake because I have enough information to work with so that even if it's a bad buy, flip, move on. So, and for everything that I do, I can explain it to you. And I think that's the same with not just the products I buy, the stores I sell in, how I split my stores. It's also, my decisions to start a Discord community, the people I choose to work with, the people that I choose to care for, all that stuff, right? There's a reason behind all of it that gives me confidence to do it regardless of what other people think. And if that's your approach, then you have to step away from here's what I bought, here's what it is, and you should go pick it up. No, you need to actually take a step back and work on, like we talked about, that equation, not just rare, not just bolo, but why. And once you get that depth, you'll realize you have so much information in your head, you pretty much can take on the category. You know what I mean? You're not setting yourself up for one buy. You're setting yourself up for a bunch of repetitive buys that essentially forms the foundation of business going forward. So you're just like me, needing to invest a lot up front mentally in order to make a decision. But it's not for one decision, okay? It's not for one decision. It's for what is going to be 1,000 sales a month in a very niche category. And then once you establish that pattern, the next time you see something that's of interest to you, you do that deep dive and then set yourself for another 1,000 sales a month in that category. So yeah, that's very comforting, very reassuring. And actually, the more you lean into that, because that's how you're wired, when could be your spouse, your family members, people who want to support you but don't know how, when they talk to you and they want to know what you see, they don't just hear this sold for that's why it's worthwhile. They hear the story, and that's enough to give them confidence to know that you know what you're doing. Because that same understanding, step by step, because you've broken it down step by step, people who don't know what you do can still follow along. And even if they don't understand how it gets there, I was having this conversation with Paul. So Paul's the guy who does all the IT stuff on our Discord community, and he's a gun. Like for me to do things on Discord requires a lot more learning, a lot more understanding, a lot more trial and error. I'll tell him to do it, he does it, and he's just like, it's like making pancakes, So, and then he will explain it to me, and I'll say to him, two things. I know you know what you're doing. I know that it's going to work. I know it's going to work. I don't understand it. And that's okay. I don't feel not confident not understanding it because I'm not the one doing it. But I know that it's enough for me. I know that it's enough for me to feel confident in, because you've broken it down. It's the methodical nature of the explanation has given me enough confidence to build upon it. And I think when we start reselling, or when we pivot away from one category to another, You could have been selling toys and then now you want to do clothing, or clothing you want to do tech, or tech you want to do camping gear, or camping gear you want to do, auto parts. Doesn't matter what the items are. Whenever you make any sort of switch, the reason most family members don't support is because they're like, how do I get on this, and how do I make decisions for the family and for our friendship groups or whatever, given your new big change? And if you're able to articulate the story and the step by step, they don't have to understand it, but they just need to know you know what you're doing so that they can continue making decisions. For example, Jen needs to know that she can continue paying school fees, that the kids' extracurriculars can still continue because the business changes we've made will continue to make money or more. She needs to know that the kids are still going to get attention, even though I've started the Discord community. They have, they need to know that you're going to be able to do the house chores, do your part in taking the kids out for various things, spending time with her, despite the late nights, doing YouTube, Discord, plus eBay. They need to know. And if I'm able to explain all of that, she'll be like, all right, cool. I'll just keep making decisions now. I'm not in a holding pattern because I don't understand what you're doing. So that's the pro, pros and cons, pro of the way we are wired. And at this point, I'm talking to the people who are very much like me, which from what I'm gathering, at least in my Discord community, a lot of people are like me. We like to understand what we do before we do it. We don't enjoy the bolo hunt because it feels very wild goose chase, witch hunt-y. It feels like a bunch of photographs on the wall with the threads, like the detective thing, where they draw a thread, they're trying to figure out the pattern. And sometimes there is no pattern other than the fact that there's profit. And that's not good enough for people like me, people like you. But that's not to say that we can't make profit with understanding first. Also, with the holidays, today is a packing day and also a recording day because we've got a few things we need to get done because the kid is home. So I've promised that every Tuesday will be daddy's son time, which I'm really looking forward to. But I'm also kind of partially stressed out because I've never had to take a full day off in the week plus the weekend. Most weekends I don't take fully off. Most weekends, I'll try and work in pockets. But to give a full day, middle of the week off to not work at all, that's going to be interesting. So I'm trying to get as much done as I can today. I know the priority. I need to make a YouTube video for you guys to chew over. Apparently, that's how I showed that I care. And I do care. And I do enjoy the engagement that I've gotten in the comments from some of you, especially some of you who are newer to the channel or who are discovering me at this point in the journey. I was going to say this point in my career, my 1.5 YouTube career. So yes, making a video for you guys, a long one to chew on, hopefully. Hopefully this isn't going to go for an hour long. Pack all the orders. Photos can wait. I've got plenty of photos to take. I've got to do some prep for Christmas party coming up on Friday. So Friday night, we're doing Christmas party in Discord. We're going to do a schedule of activities that I'm going to put up in the notice board. Go check it out. There'll be a link in the description somewhere. Between you and me, it's just a way to us to play with the space, right? We're going, let's do a Christmas party. How can we use the space to make it a really awesome Christmas party? We'll be playing games. We'll do giveaways. We'll have reflection. We'll just get to know each other better. I think it shouldn't be that because we can't get together in person, because we're just all over the globe, that we can't still mimic some of that depth. I'm going to say depth through an online platform. And so far on Discord, I feel like there has been depth. I feel like it's been more than just a hi and bye. It's been more than just a bunch of giggles and jokes. It has been a meaningful journey of getting to know everybody. Every time someone new comes into the space, we're all just wanting to get to know them. We've got a hangout space. If they feel comfortable, if you feel comfortable with video on, we have a conversation, and the moment that happens, it's gold. It's like, wow, I didn't realize I needed this. And now that I've experienced it, I kind of don't want to not have it anymore. And it's nothing to do with anything fancy we're doing. It's really to do with the fact that human beings by nature don't like being lonely. We don't like being left alone. And oftentimes we choose to be alone because we don't trust the people that we spend time with. But the moment we find good company, we realize that it's better to be in good company than it is to be alone. So, yeah, I'm loving the fact that the space we've created is a space that's telling people that it's better to be in good company than it is to be alone. There's a parable in the Bible that talks about how when you plant seeds, you need good soil. If you have thorny ground, if you have hard soil, if you have soil that gets trampled over, the seed doesn't grow. And the seed is the same, right? It's the conditions that allow the seed to grow. And that seems common sense. But why don't we apply that logic that we appreciate when it comes to seeds to our ideas? You know, we have a vision for how we want to build our businesses. And sometimes we take it to Facebook, we plant the idea there and say, hey, I've got this idea, what do you guys think? A bunch of laughing emojis come, a bunch of people start commenting, and then you maybe try and explain yourself, and then you get offended maybe because you weren't expecting that kind of a pushback. You'll hear people say things like, if you can't take a joke, don't be on the internet, which is very unkind. But that happens on the internet. And then you take your seed, you take it back and go, well, I guess that wasn't worth planting. But was it not worth planting, or was it just the fact that it was planted in a place that wasn't suited for it to grow? Because at the end of the day, it's a seed. Nobody knows what that's, for the most part, most people don't know what a seed is going to be at first glance. If you take a seed to a farmer, they'll tell you. And even then, some farmers cannot identify every seed because they only grow certain crops. So if a farmer cannot even identify the seed that you've got, what more people who don't farm? So to plant the seed in the wrong place, conditions matter. But if you take that seed and you put it in an environment where people are curious, people will take that seed and research it. They will understand what it takes to care for it. That's the kind of environment where ideas can continue to flesh out. Where a simple idea that seems pointless because it's so vague eventually has some legs because it becomes more specific, it becomes more detailed. And that growing of an idea can only happen in conditions where people are curious, people are kind, and spaces that feel safe. Part of building safe spaces is not about getting good people. It's also about keeping people away that don't appreciate what it takes to have conditions for ideas to grow. And I've gotten a lot of flack for that because I've kicked people out of my Discord community already. Not by my own, not by my single decision making. Collectively, as a team, we've actually kicked people out because they don't understand and they don't respect that every idea, as small and fragile as a seed as it might be, does not get to be trampled on just because they've got assumptions and they don't want to ask questions. I wish that everybody had the same level of curiosity, if not more, than what I do. Because I love ideas. Ideas make things interesting. For the most part, reselling is not interesting. It's actually a very boring thing. And if you guys follow like Daily Refinement Tech, they'll tell you the reselling component is actually very, very boring. The business component is the interesting part. It's how do you get the most output from your processes, right? When you run it lean, when you run it fat, when you run it with staff, no staff, when you have contractors, like all that complexity that allows this activity to happen. That's very interesting. This stuff, the selling of stuff, the toys, all this stuff is fun, but it gets boring very quickly because reselling is a very simple business, which is why a lot of the times resellers start and stop, they don't grow, they get stagnant because their ideas aren't allowed to spark. And that's why I think a lot of resellers kind of gravitate towards the YouTube thing as well, because YouTube isn't interesting for the feedback. The likes, the monetization, all that stuff is boring. The part that's interesting is the people, because it's the variety. And we've talked about understanding why the stacking of value. I got bored of YouTube money after a month because it's not about the money. It's about how do you change a message to get feedback from different people, because the algorithm picks up this message and goes, I reckon these people will like it. And we're wrong. Or we're right. And you see the numbers move. Those numbers are interesting not for self-affirmation, but for idea to people match. That's interesting. And so when I think about spaces that allow us to continually feel alive, it's places where ideas grow, not places where ideas are trampled off by people who summarily dismiss your ideas. Like the nah. That's not something that we want in our space, and that's not something that we encourage in our space. And in fact, it's something that we very regularly call out in our space by asking better questions. Why does it work? How does that work? I reckon this will work better here. Have you tried this? This could work because. Not this could work because. And I wanted to share that with you guys, because guard your ideas. And when your ideas, when you've planted a seed, if you feel that it's not being allowed to grow, if it gets suffocated by thorns, if it's trampled upon, consider changing the conditions of where you plant that seed, but please don't not plant that seed. We're talking seeds that come from a good place, that are intended for you to grow to benefit your family. Seeds that come from a wholesome place, a place of love, a place of joy. If that's where your seeds come from, please guard it. Please be aware, very aware, that the conditions are more important to its success than what people think that seed actually is, right? Because if all you wanted was to grow an apple tree, and nobody else cares for apple trees, but you want to grow it, you'll find places that will allow you to do that. And then the best part is, when you do grow it in those places, we will be proud and cheer you on for the fact that you managed to grow that tree, and we'll all enjoy it because we enjoy seeing you enjoy it. You probably recognize this, don't you? Any guesses? Ghostbusters Ecto 1. So this is a 1/64 scale Hot Wheels version of it. It's the first edition that came out in 2010. This would have been a $2 car on the shelf. And so 2010, it's been 13 years. I sold this for $23. I wanted $30, took a best offer of $23. Rare, now it's scarce, okay? But it's a desired car because it's iconic. It came from a iconic franchise that manufacturers are still making things for it. They keep remaking the cartoon. They keep remaking versions of the toys for it. The Lego Ghostbusters headquarters is one of the more expensive retired sets that you can buy. So lots of things indicating that it's still relevant, it's still sought after, it's still valuable, right? Together. In this case, it's mint condition as well, if you can see. Not a single chip. Look at that. And so when looking at the condition of this item, you go, okay, $2, desirability, scarce, popular franchise, not a lot available, not a lot that you'll find in this condition anymore, because this is the meant to be played with version. If you look up Hot Wheels Ecto 1 and you go through the list of variants, most of them were convention cars. So convention cars are cars that are not intended to be played with. They're intended for you to put it on your wall. Those are cars that go for $700. Some of them can even go to in the thousands if they're really sought after. Those are cars for collectors. This was intended for play, which means that if ever you pick up a bulk lot and you see an Ecto 1 and you go pick it up, there's a good chance windshield's probably already been scratched off. The wheels have probably been scratched. Paint has come off. The Ghost logo probably has got scratched too. But the point being is, because of all those factors together, the stack tells you that when you find something in this condition, and heck, this person may just want to play with it as well, in which case then, for the privilege of playing with one of these things, because he's not going to play with any of the other ones, $23 plus shipping. Now, something that I know that you don't know by going on eBay is that the buyer that bought this last week also bought from me the 1/64 version of the GMC van from A-Team. So this person clearly collects movie cars. I wish I had this here, but I already shipped it out. So when you build out a niche store and you even by understanding all the information that you need to get started, you understand the why, the stacking, there's still more to know. You know what I mean? There's still more that you can only know by testing. So you may have a theory, a hypothesis that says, if I have the largest range possible, surely people will combine purchase. Makes sense on paper. And then you go and sell. And then you'll come across patterns within your sales that is not public knowledge. Because Terapeak isn't going to go bought by same buyer. They're just going to go, these are items that sold for this much. And for the most part, unless you look in my store, you're not going to see both these sales turn up in the same research endeavor. You'll type in Hot Wheels Ecto and you'll get the Ectos, but you won't get the A-Team car, and vice versa. If you go to my store and this person bought 6 months before, the A-Team car isn't going to turn up. But even then, all you'll know is that I've sold both these items. It will not tell you who it sold to. That stuff is proprietary to me, right? So that's your confidence, which is why whenever somebody wants to start selling on eBay, I always go, start selling first, have some sort of an idea of a model as to why your business will work. And then as you sell, you'll spot those patterns. And once you spot those patterns, that's unique to you. That's your confidence booster that no one else has. And no one else can criticize because they don't know about it, right? They'll say, oh, you sell toys. Cool. How do you make money? Because you've got a confidence booster that they don't know about. Or how do you sell women's shoes? That brand, I can't seem to move that brand. Well, you know how to move that brand because you've got data from your sales, your actual actions that tell you what you're doing makes sense. So lean into that and hang on to that. And don't let anybody question that because they don't know any better. You do. So I've just made a sale for $82 and I love how people are just consistent. I mean, here, I'll show you. You ready? So they've bought, this makes sense, right? You go, somebody likes an Austin minivan and they bought another one, okay? But then they bought two. And then you go, huh, they also bought a Mustang from a similar era. And then they go and buy the Mira, which is from a similar era as well. See what I mean? Like someone who's buying these cars are not buying the cars from today. And someone who's buying the cars from today are not buying these cars. When I talk to people who ask me, like, you know, how do you sell them? You know, do people just buy any car? Do people buy a lot of cars? And people have patterns. People have patterns whether we like it or not. And the more patterns you acknowledge, the more target buyers you uncover. And so I think that there are resellers who are happy to sell and just take the money and just focus on the numbers of selling. When in actual fact, what they should be doing is picking out the patterns of the buyers that come to their shops and then asking themselves, is this a pattern that's unique or a pattern that's representative of a potentially sizable market? Sizable is a relative word. If sizable means you can make 100K a year, that is sizable for you. It may not be sizable for the world. And obviously, if you take that 100K, and you get a competitor eventually, and it gets dwindled down to 50K for yourself because you're the first person there, is it still sizable for you? So sizable is relative. But if that pattern leads to you understanding that uncovering a buyer, a type of buyer, a target buyer, that you can then target your offerings to based on the items that you collect, you curate and put into your store and list, that's useful information, that's data that you only get from selling. Because we talked about how eBay will not tell you who buys what, it will just tell you what has sold. It's up to you to sell and figure out who buys what. And the who buys what is so important and should not be overlooked. Still gotta get rid of this cold. Last parcel done. And I'm gonna edit this video so you guys can get it as soon as possible. Thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts to you today and for spending the time with me. If you're part of the YouTube community and you'd like to come and spend some time with us on Discord, I encourage you to do so. it's the kind of environment that we created for ourselves because we didn't see it anywhere else. A place where ideas can grow, a place where people can be encouraged, a place where people are kind to each other, and most importantly, a place that is kept that way. On Friday, we're going to have our Christmas party. No, get together. I haven't been in the job for about 10 years, and I forget that Christmas parties aren't always a positive thing. Some people don't look forward to it. So it's a get together for us to quote unquote feel like family and celebrate the year that's been. So if you're part of my community, whether it be on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you found me, and you'd like to have more of a personal connection, deeper connection with similar-minded people, I welcome you to come and join us on Friday in the Discord space. Yeah, look forward to it. I'm really excited that it's happening, and yeah. In terms of reselling things, if you're someone who thinks a lot, if you're someone whose mind races, constantly making decisions to build out the ideas that you've got in your head, it's okay. It's normal. I'm like that. Just remember that there comes a point when you have to respect your own data above the data that's available from everybody, because if you're willing to test and explore and discover, you have to give yourself credit that what you discover is yours to use and to build upon as well. If you discover things and then you come back and people don't believe you and people keep criticizing you, and you find yourself in that tension place, hang around people who encourage you to lean into your own ideas, because that's how niches are created. That's how new things get invented. That's how people discover. And discovery is awesome and interesting. So yeah, until next video, take care, and I'll hopefully see you on Friday. Bye.